Hi, I'm Kyle Bleeker, the pastor of Friends Church in Tustin, and I'm glad you're checking out some of our online content today. Along with our in person gatherings, which are every Sunday at 10 a.m., we have a number of different ways to help people get connected to our community and discover what God, the Bible, and Jesus have to do with your life. So check out our website to learn more or send our team a message directly using one of the links so we can help you find your way. Thanks again for taking the time. Now, on to this week's message. We have this chance to be able to use our eyes to be able to experience the world around us. And this Beatitude today is talking specifically about what it looks like to set your eyes on and actually see God, and why that is the best thing that we within life can set our eyes on. So I want to be able to look with you, Matthew chapter 5. It's where we've been over the last while. If you have your Bible, please pull it out, take a look. We're going to start at verse 1. We always read this kind of cumulatively because the Beatitudes build on each other. They are called Beatitudes because the word blessing in Latin is beati, and so this is a chance to be able to read more of the blessings that Jesus spoke over people. So, start Matthew chapter 5, verse 1. It starts off by saying this. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down, and his disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." So the question that we're going to be exploring a little bit today, looking at that last beatitude, is this idea: what does it mean to be pure in heart, and what does it mean to see God? The two pieces are very, very closely linked, and we're going to be unpacking that a little bit today. There was a TV show back in the day called Friday Night Lights, and one of the phrases that they often said was, "Clear eyes." Anybody else? Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose, okay? Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. I don't think Jesus was a fan of Friday Night Lights. It came a little bit after his time, but they had this statement that they said to a high school football team, which was, hey, if you have clear eyes and you got a full heart, like, you can't lose. No matter what, you're going to go out there and you're going to play against this team and you're going to win. And in some of their seasons in the TV show, they did win. Sometimes they didn't, though. But they had their eyes set on a goal, which was the ability within this football team to win, and the ability ultimately to have the championship. But there are greater things for us to set our sights on. I had a real privilege over the last month to actually officiate at 2 different weddings, and I want to be able to kind of celebrate that today. So about 3 weeks ago, Daniel Diaz and Sophie got married, right? It was really, really cool. And a week ago today, Kyle and Hallie got married, right? And it's a great privilege. I've known both of these couples for years and years, and so it's a real privilege for me to get to officiate. But you have to know that one of the interesting things about being an officiant for a wedding is the fact that you stand right back here, right? And Kyle, and I can remember this, but this just happened a couple weeks ago, Daniel is standing right here, and he's waiting for Sophie to come out. And nobody has the view that I have, right? No photographer or anything. I'm looking over Daniel's shoulder, and he's like, he's waiting. He just wants to catch a glimpse of his bride, right? And same thing happened just a week ago. I'm sitting in my officiant spot, right? And I'm looking over the shoulder, a little bit harder because Kyle's a little taller, but I'm looking over Kyle's shoulder, and he's just waiting for Hallie to come out. And in both settings, there's just this big build-up moment where all of a sudden they change the music, everybody stands and turns, and there is the sight. The sight is this woman who loves this man coming down to be able to be together and to make promises to one another, and then to begin to build their life with each other. When I'm the officiant, I'm watching, and I just have this really unique spot where I get to sit and watch these men welcome their wives or their, fiance right up to the front. It's awesome. That sighting is what the Bible actually describes and gives a picture of how God is actually waiting and in expectation to be able to see his church, to be able to see us. There's a hopefulness, there's a longing. And so today, as we read through this verse, you might sit back and hear it and think, wait, the pure in heart get the chance to see God. Am I pure in heart? Am I someone who the interior working of my life is actually in a state where my eyes are clear enough to be able to get a glimpse of what God is like? You might be sitting back and thinking, well, God's kind of elusive in my life. A sighting of him is like a sighting of a really, really famous person. It's kind of rare. It's difficult. Maybe God's actually hiding from me is one of the things that you wonder about, because you know the state of your own heart. And we're going to look at what the Bible has to say about what it means to have a pure heart and to have eyes that can see God in this world. Because it was awesome for Kyle and for Daniel to be able to see Hallie and to see Sophie. And Hallie and Sophie were also really excited to be able to come and to see them. And that's a great, great, beautiful picture. But I do believe that if we were able to see God, that it would supersede that. And we're going to unpack a little bit about why that is such an amazing thing. Throughout the Old Testament, we get the chance to hear about the people of God. And these are people who, through all kinds of different situations, the Bible has thousands of stories, and people experiencing life in very different historical contexts. And yet, again and again and again, the thing that unites these people is the fact that they have relationship with God, and they are constantly looking for God. Faith is the willingness to look for something that currently is not seen. And so we today, Christians throughout the world, we don't see God every single Sunday. Wouldn't that be amazing if you just rolled in here and there God was, or there Jesus was? We don't get the chance to let our eyes rest upon God. It's a kind of a mystery, and one of the things I think when I get to heaven I'll ask God about. I'll say, God, you're all powerful, you're apparently all present, yet I didn't see you all that often. And I wrestle a little bit with that. Like, why didn't you make yourself more visibly known? Why didn't you appear to us or show up? Why was it so rare? And I think that one of the things that Jesus is trying to get at here is that there is a strong connection between the state of our hearts and the ability to see God. Notice he doesn't say, blessed are the really accomplished. Blessed are those who have great resources. Blessed are the strong or influential, for they will see God. No, he says something that is specifically about the condition of our inward life, and that is the standard that enables us to be able to see and witness God. And the passage that Jesus is referencing here is actually from Psalm 24. And so I want to be able to look there with you really briefly. I'll read it for you, and it's up on the screen. It says this in Psalm 24, which is part of the passage that I read earlier. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, for he founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Started with that. But then it shifts from who God is and what God's done to a question. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? It's basically asking, who can meet with God? Who of you, if you wanted to have a meeting set up with a really high official or with a famous person, you'd just be able to call and get it to go? He's asking that question. Who has the ability to set a meeting with God and to see him face to face where he dwells? And he answers with this: the one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. When we think about purity and when we think about what it means for something to be dedicated or clean, we might bop our brains around to a lot of different types of pictures. What this is connecting it to is this idea specifically of idols, or specifically to other gods. And that's important, because there are a lot of things in this life that could potentially get our hearts off okay? In Greek, the word is simply cardia, and that's the reference to the heart. And it means your inner life. It's the core of who you are, the central part, which works really well because guess what? If your heart isn't working right within your physical body, you're not working right. If your heart is constricted or is struggling, guess what? You're going to feel it. And so your thoughts, your desires, your emotions, your choices, they all flow out of your heart. It's the essential part of who you really are. And God is very, very concerned with our hearts. It says in 2 Chronicles 16, verse 9, that God's eyes range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. So God has heart radar. And he is scanning over the entire world to try and find someone that he could actually see and that he could pour into and strengthen. And that in doing so, that they would actually realize that they have a fully committed heart. In some versions, it says, those whose hearts are pure toward God. And Jesus is focused on the heart because he realizes that your heart is the place where problems and promises come together. It is the great battlefield of life. If you talk to anybody who's trying to get a movement going or win something, they'll say, oh, we got to win people's hearts. Because if you can win hearts, then you can win the world. But if you don't have someone's heart, eventually what will happen is they'll say, I'm not really in this, and they'll drift. So God wants your heart. And just so you can hear this very, very clearly, God wants you to see him. God is not trying to hide from you. God is not playing a game with you, but God has certain requirements and standards for those of us who can see him. He's such a bright and holy and different thing that if we look upon him without the right kind of purity, it will actually burn us up. And so we see in the Old Testament that there's a time actually where Moses, the guy who is the leader of the people of Israel, he has a chance to see God pass by. He doesn't see God's face. He just sees God's back, actually. And when he comes down the mountain, do you know what they say about Moses' face? He was radiant. He was glowing because he saw God's back. That's what our God is like. And so we have to understand that if we don't have that purity, that there's actually a block. There's something that can't happen because it's just too bright. Just like if you look at the sun without lenses, or if I look at these bulbs right now, right? It's too strong. So there's this amazing hope that we get the chance to be able to see God. Throughout the Old Testament, that was always the people's desire, is that they would be able to go to the temple, a specific place designed for meeting with God, and that they would be able to encounter him, to experience him. And within the church now, there is often a kind of a conversation about come to church, come to a Sunday morning so that you can encounter and experience and know and be face to face with Jesus, with God. But the problem that we have to acknowledge is the fact that just by that little standard that Jesus throws out there, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The problem we have to acknowledge is that our hearts are not pure. Mine is not pure. I'm not in a spot where I can say that I have a clean or unmixed heart. Pure is simply this. It means that there is no pollution and that there is no dilution. Okay? Pollution being those things that are corrupt or bad or wrong that unfortunately have gotten into our heart and have taken a root like a weed, right? Dilution is this idea that there are good things that are in the mix that unfortunately have actually watered down the very best thing. So back in ancient times, if you were a person who made wine, there was a certain point where if you needed to sell a little bit more wine but you didn't have it, you would water it down. And so you would still have enough available, the amount of gallons that you wanted to share, but the taste would be diluted. Not with something bad or pollution or toxic, but just simply something that pulled away from what the experience was meant to be. And then on top of that, there were also things that you could do in terms of your relationship with God or your relationship with other people that were considered sin. They were pollution. They were something specifically dangerous or wrong or evil that would cause great problem. And so, the idea of purity here is that something would be not polluted and that it would be not diluted. In Mark chapter 7, it says specifically from Jesus a comment about our hearts. He says, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All of these evils come from inside and defile a person. It's interesting because I think a lot of times when you talk to Christians, they always are pointing the finger out at the world and saying, you know what, we've got to protect ourselves from the world because the world is where the wrong is, and it's always kind of trying to get in. So we, like a Tupperware, have to make sure that we're sealed, and then, the evil can't come. Jesus himself in Mark is saying, no. The evil, the wrong, unfortunately, is within you. Sin has found its way into the very core of your being, and it actually leads to really bad stuff coming out. That's the biblical picture that we have. Not of the fact that we just need to, have a holy huddle and protect ourselves, but no, we actually have to deal with something at the root of us that is off. Jeremiah 17 verse 9 says that the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? That's a tough phrase to be able to swallow. And a lot of people don't really want to deal with the fact that at their very core, there's something wrong. Instead, we would love to be able to say, well, when a new child is born, really they're clean and innocent and everything about them is good. But you know what? It's as they grow and they're exposed to the world that then that nurture ends up causing the problem, right? No. The biblical picture is the fact that it is both nature and nurture. That we, from the start, have a problem that we have to tangle with and we have to deal with. And it exists within our very core. Charles Spurgeon, who's a famous preacher, said that impurity of the heart causes spiritual blindness. That when there is something wrong within here, that it has the ability to, almost like when you're in your car and you haven't turned the defrost on and, it fogs up the windows. You can't see out, not because of something on the outside of the car, but because of the fog on the inside. And it leads to a point where you aren't able to navigate the world. And I think that that's true. But those problems, not just pollution, but also dilution. A life that is unfortunately mixed with too many things. So there's a biblical story in the book of Mark where Jesus is teaching and a man runs up to him, a young man who was actually very, very wealthy. They refer to him often as the rich young ruler. The man runs up to Jesus and he says, what do I have to do to live forever? And Jesus says to him, have you obeyed the commandments? He says, don't steal, don't give false testimony, don't defraud, honor your father and mother. And the young man says, every single one of these I've done since I was a little boy. And Jesus looks at him, and in Mark it actually says that he loved him, that Jesus looked on this young man and just was impressed by this little guy. And then he says, one thing you lack, go and sell all your possessions, give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And then he gives them this amazing invitation, come and follow me. This young man was offered the chance to be a disciple of Jesus, which was a very rare thing to have happened, where Jesus specifically said, come and follow me. Jesus often was telling people, just go do something else. But in this situation, he says that, and the young man, it says, was deeply dismayed by his words. And he went away grieving, for he was one who owned a great deal of property. His heart was mixed. It wasn't that on the outside he wasn't doing the things that he needed to do. It was that he had a heart problem. He liked and even loved and was divided in his loves. His wealth had a hold on him. And Jesus looked at him and loved him and knew, you can't follow me until that is dealt with. And so he had this hard kind of confrontation with the young man, and the man went away sad. And that's a mixed heart. That's an impure heart. Not because of pollution, but because of dilution. It's not all committed. It's not all in. And so when we're talking about this, it's kind of the idea of integrity. When you think about integrity, it comes from the word integer, right? Which is this idea of a whole number in math. It's not a decimal. It's not a fraction. It is a whole thing. Okay? I hope I got that right for all the math, people out there, right? So when we think of our lives like a pie, and we're like, oh, I've got a slice of my life is my career. A slice of my life is my work. A slice of my life is my spirituality. A slice of my life is my family. A slice of my life is my sex life. A slice of my life is my social life. And these slices have little partitions and everything else in them. And you know what? These I've really given over to Jesus. But these over here, that's kind of my pie. And I don't really want to share it. And we think that that's okay. And God is telling us, if you want to be able to see me as I truly am, then you have to have a purity within your heart. And that means that it can't just be a couple of slices. Or, to say it this way, you can't give God a fraction or a percentage and expect that there would be clarity. So people at times will really struggle with this. They'll be like, I can't see God. And they want to maybe point to certain circumstances or certain things on the outside of them that are maybe blocking their ability to view God. And I will say that there are circumstances that hit us that, man, it makes it very difficult for us to know what God is up to and to believe in Him. That's very real. But there is an interior conversation that needs to be had. And that is a conversation about how pure is my heart. And am I living a life of integrity where I've actually gone to war with those things that oppose Jesus? And have I limited those things that dilute or distract from my relationship with Jesus? And these can be good things. We're told by a really famous author, his name's Tim Keller. He wrote a book that I truly love called Counterfeit Gods. And one of the things that he talks about in here is that our hearts are not just neutral, but our hearts, because of the evil, the sin that exists within them, they're actually idol factories. They are constantly pumping out things that are not good. But he describes the process, and what he says specifically is that the human heart takes good things like a successful career, love, possessions, even family, and it turns them not just into good things, but into ultimate things. Our hearts deify. We literally make into gods these things at the center of our lives because we think that they can give us significance and security and safety and fulfillment if we attain them, if we love them, if we obey them, if we worship them. And so there are things in our lives that even though we don't live in a time of temples and we don't live in a time maybe of priests or of these situations where we have to give these sacrifices to like a golden god somewhere, every single one of us all day long is churning out these things that we're like, this would be what would really meet my need. And so I'm going to go after that. And I am going to offer sacrifices to it. And I am going to go to the priest or the person who's kind of over that and give them maybe my money or my time or my value because I'm hopeful that this God, this idol, which sits within my heart, could actually meet the deep needs that I have and actually help me to feel okay within this world. That's very dangerous. And Jesus is talking about the fact that a heart that seeks an idol or swears falsely by another god is missing what purity is ultimately meant to be. And it's a challenge. It's difficult. Because to do that kind of work, to open up your chest and to be able to say, what's the state of my heart? Where's it at? Is tough work. It's much easier to just live within a place of distraction or to live in a place where you're just going by the desires that pop up and just to follow those and see where that gets you in life. Jesus says, no, the pure in heart, those who aren't asking the question, how close can I get to the edge before I get in trouble? But instead, those that are asking, how close can I get to Jesus? Those are the ones who are figuring it out. Now, as I'm saying all this and going through it, if you're feeling a little bit of a weight or a little bit of a burden about the purity of your heart, I kind of designed it in that way. I hope that you are doing a little bit of a mental assessment of yourself. What are the things that my heart seeks after? What are the idols that I've put as the throne, the ultimate within my life? That if they don't work out, I can't function, right? What are the things that you have elevated to a almost godlike status, and they actually are detracting from the type of purity that you truly want and your ability to see God? Well, I'll say this. God wants you to see him. God sees you. And God desires that we would actually do something with our impure hearts, that we would find the right remedy for the impurity that we have. In the back part of that story that I was reading earlier about, or looking at earlier about the man, the rich young ruler, his disciples, after hearing Jesus talk to this young man, say to him, who can be saved then, Jesus? If this young man who since his birth was like living the way that he should live, and he's got wealth, and you're telling him that now he has to give it all up, who can be saved? Because I can't live up to his standard. And Jesus says, with people it is impossible, but not with God, for all things are possible with God. So what do we do with our impure hearts? We have to do what David actually kind of points us to do. David was a man who was after God's own heart, but he had a problem. He screwed up. He let some of his idols or his other gods take over. He did, unfortunately, very terrible things. And yet he still calls out in Psalm 51, verse 10, create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. This is not about outward work. There's plenty of that you're encouraged to do within our world. Go after the outward appearance. Go after the outward markers of success. Give everything you've got to those, and that will work. And this is saying, no, it's about your heart. It's about who you are on the inside in your inner being. And here's the good news. That's where I wanted to get us to. When you come to Christ and you are actually willing to say, I think my heart's impure. I think it's polluted and it's diluted. I need help with this. Jesus, as the heart doctor, doesn't just look at your heart and say, I can clean this up. No, instead it says this in Ezekiel chapter 36. For I will take you out of the nations, and I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. And I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. And this is the clincher. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. God spoke this word over the nation of Israel when they were far off in a completely different land being exiled. It was a very, very difficult time for them. But what he called and spoke over them is the fact that he was going to do a bunch of things on their behalf. Do you see what it says? I will, I will, I will. Too often we're constantly telling each other within the church, you. And God is saying, no, first and foremost, get this down, I will. Because you don't need to just clean your heart up a little bit, you need a heart transplant. It needs to be completely, old one taken out, new one put in. A heart of stone isn't going to get you where you need to go. But a heart of flesh with God's own spirit, making it beat and pump to the rhythms of the King, that's when we've got a shot. So when Christ came, he didn't just ask you to clean up your heart. He gave you his. I want to show you just a picture right here of a man named Bill Connors who experienced a tragedy. His daughter, Abby, unfortunately drowned when she was 20 years old. And him and his wife made a difficult decision after she drowned that they would enable her to be an organ donor. And so Abby, actually, the hospital was able to use her organs to be able to benefit and bless a number of different people. And he really became a champion of organ donation. And so he decided that he was going to bike ride 1,400 miles to be able to raise awareness about organ donation and tell his story to anybody who would listen. And he told the hospital, and the hospital said, hey, well, when you do this, can we reach out to the different people who received things from Abby's life? And could you be willing to potentially meet them? And so they reached out to all the different people who had received something, and no one responded back except for one person, the young man whose name was Jack, who had received Abby's heart. And so after riding 1,400 miles from Wisconsin to Louisiana, Jack and Bill meet up on Father's Day. Jack's a father himself. He comes, he meets with Bill, and he hands him a stethoscope and tells him, would you like to listen to your daughter's heart? I know. I watched the YouTube video and was just sobbing, right? And this young man opens up his chest, and Bill takes the stethoscope and puts it on him, and he just hugs Jack and starts to break down. And he says one thing to Jack. He says, it's working. And it was. And Jack responds back and says, it sure is. Jack would have died within days had that heart not come and been transplanted at just the right time. But because of that, Jack is still living, and he's spreading the news about the importance of organ donation. And Bill Connors is trying to figure out how to keep living a life, even in the shadow of this big tragedy that happened within his life. That is a picture of what Jesus does for us. He died on the cross so that you could have his heart. And when he puts it inside of you, when you actually receive it, if you get word from the hospital, we've got a heart for you, right? You want to be able to say, yes, we'll take it, right? And so because of that, our lives are dramatically changed. They're completely revolutionized. And the old things that used to pollute and the other things that used to kind of be important to us, we work now with Jesus, with the Spirit of God, to remove them from our lives so that our hearts can beat in line with the King, in line with the Father. This is what's hopeful for us. This is the gospel. And that passage before where it says, I will do it, I will do it. Our goal is not to work really hard to make our hearts pure. Our goal is to come to the heart doctor and say, I need a transplant. Will you do this for me? And if you've never, ever done that before, I want you to encourage you that today is a great day to get your heart set right. In fact, to get a new heart and get it beating in the right way. I want you to know that one of the things that excites me about being a part of a church like this is the fact that not only do I know that many of you have actually received that kind of a heart into your life, and that you now have the ability to see God out in the world, not because you're so great, but because you've got a pure heart within you by the grace of Jesus, and so you can see God in your life. But I want you to know that one of the great blessings of the church is the fact that we then get to see God within each other. So when I'm here on a Sunday morning or I'm out there during the week and I see people giving by the way that they serve, I think, oh, there's God. When I see people giving financially or building relationships within each other, being kind or warm or welcoming when someone new comes into this space, when I see people bringing joy to their city through things that they're doing in their neighborhoods and at different events, I think there's God at work. When I am at Life Group, and I'm sitting there with men who are ultimately repenting of things that they don't want to have a part of their life, and then group after group is praying for each other, I say, there's God. I can see it. When people join a life group, maybe for the first time, and open up about what's going on for them, I see God in all those different things. And there's so many other ways here within Friends Tustin that we get to see God actively within each other, the Spirit of God moving within us. That's how pure hearts eventually enable us to see God. Now, through a mirror that is cloudy. But someday we will see face to face. There's a passage in Scripture that says that specifically within 1 Corinthians. I believe it's chapter 13. And it says, can you pull it up for me? It says that. Sorry, I lost my place here. Basically, it says what I was just saying. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. We don't have a slide for this one. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully. And this part's beautiful. Even as I am fully known. God is looking for you. He has a radar that is out for those who have been willing to accept his son's heart. Do you think that man, Bill Connors, would just bike 1,400 miles for nothing? No. But when he knew that his daughter Abby's heart was out in Louisiana, he got on the bike and he went. And God is even more passionate about seeking after you and about being able to see you where you're at in your life. And he wants for you to see him and transform the inner life that you have so that you can see him more and more and more clearly. And you can actually be his people in the world so that the rest of the world can also catch a glimpse, even before they're done being polluted or diluted, right? They can catch a glimpse of what God's like. So that's the greatest thing for us to set our eyes upon. That's the thing that we want to look towards and be able to pursue. I'm going to invite the worship team to come back up. We're going to sing a song that's actually an oldie, right? And some of you maybe have never sung it before. But it's a song that says just what the Scripture talked about in Psalm 24. Give us clean hands. Give us pure hearts. Let us not lift our souls to something else. And just so you know, that phrase, clean hands, pure hearts, it's meant to be a picture of the holistic life. It's like if you said, yeah, we were out there day and night, right? You mean the whole time, right? We looked high and low, right? Well, in this phrase, if you said, yeah, we wanted clean hands and a pure heart, that meant the whole thing. So I invite you to stand to your feet. We're going to sing this song. And if there are places within your life that have kind of come to mind as we've been talking where you need to get rid of some pollution, or maybe you need to limit the dilution, this is the chance for you to turn that over to God, to trust him with your heart. Here's my heart, Lord. Take and seal it. Seal it for the courts above. This is the chance for you to do that in worship.